It's time to break down the Buffalo Bills Week 8 opponent, the challenges they present, and what the Bills need to do to deal with them today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, folks, it's time to get ready for the Bills' next game, and I think I can speak for most of us in that we are looking forward to the next game so we can move on from the disappointment that was the New England Patriots loss and focus on the next opportunity to get a win and get this season on track. So let's get into it. The Buffalo Bills are at home in Week 8 to host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The game will be played on Thursday, October 26th at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. The game will be broadcasted on Amazon Prime. Al Michaels is on the play-by-play. Kirk Herbstreit is the game analyst. And Kaylee Hartung is the sideline reporter. This will only be the 13th all-time meeting against the Bills and Bucs. And the Bills are surprisingly not very good against the Bucs. They're 4-8 all-time against Tampa Bay. The last meeting, of course, was back in 2021. And the Bills lost that game in overtime, 33-27. And if you recall, the Bills were losing 24-3 at halftime. They came back and tied it at 27 late in the fourth quarter to force overtime. And then the Buccaneers won the game in overtime. And that loss in 2021 pushed the Bills to 7-6. It was a stretch, an 8-game stretch where the Bills were 3-5. They had some bad losses during that stretch. A 41-15 loss to the Colts, a 9-6 loss to the Jaguars with Urban Meyer as that head coach, a 14-10 loss to the Patriots the week before. And despite all of that, by the end of the season, people will tell you, myself included, that that was the best opportunity the Bills have had to win the Super Bowl. Now, we know how that ended in the disaster that was 13 seconds, but can the 2023 Bills use the sequencing of a disappointing loss to the Patriots into a wake-up game against Tampa Bay and find some momentum? We shall see. The Bills, as you know, entered this game 4-3. The Bucs are 3-3. They've already had their bye week. They started the season 3-1. But Tampa has dropped 3 of their last 4. So to date, this is what has happened with Tampa Bay. In Week 1, they beat the Vikings 20-17. Week 2, they beat the Bears 27-17. Then in Week 3, they lost to the Eagles 25-11. Week 4, they beat the Saints 26-9 into their Week 5 bye. Then they came out of the bye and lost to the Lions 20-6. And then last week, they fell to the Falcons 16-13. The head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is Todd Bowles, 59 years old. He's in his second season as the Bucs head coach, his 6th season overall as an NFL head coach. As you may recall, he was the Jets head coach from 2015 through 2018. And during that 4-year stretch, he was 24-40 as their head coach. And then last year with the Bucs, Tom Brady's last season, they went 8-9. And so 3-3 so far this year for an overall mark of 11-12 as the head coach in Tampa Bay. The quarterback for the Buccaneers is Baker Mayfield, 6'1", 215 pounds. He's 28 years old. First round pick, number 1 overall in 2018 out of Oklahoma by the Cleveland Browns. He spent 4 years in Cleveland before getting traded to the Panthers entering the 2022 season. And then he finished that year with the Rams. And then he signed in Tampa Bay this offseason, and he beat out Kyle Trask for the starting job. So far in 2023, Baker Mayfield is completing 65% of his passes, 227 passing yards per game, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and an overall passer rating of 89.2. Let's get into some of the metrics with Baker Mayfield. And there's some things that surprised me here. And there's a lot of metrics overall that surprised me with the Buccaneers. So we'll have some fun things to get into. But Baker Mayfield's average time to throw is 2.85 seconds. That is 21st in the NFL. His average depth of target is 8.8 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's 9th. 12.3% of his throws are targeted 20 yards or more down the field. That is 13th. And so far on those deep shots, he's 7 of 25 for 239 yards with 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. His completion percentage of 28% on deep throws is 28th in the NFL. And anytime I give you quarterback metrics, just know that it's the top 32 quarterbacks in terms of passing attempts. So it's a true representation. When I tell you 28, you can know that it's 28 out of 32. 65% of Baker's throws are to his first read. That is 18th in the NFL, so not necessarily one of those one-read passers. And he's got some very fascinating splits. 44% of the time he gets it out in under 2.5 seconds. And 56%, of course, means he gets it out over 2.5 seconds. When he gets it out quick, his passer rating is 85.5. When he holds on to the ball, the passer rating is 92.9. So nothing overly interesting there about Baker Mayfield. He's actually had a fair amount of success this year holding onto the football and extending some plays and making throws. Now, under pressure, this is where it gets interesting. He's not under pressure a lot. 33% of the time he's under pressure. That's 9th lowest in the NFL. And he's only been sacked 8 times this year, which is 2nd fewest in the NFL. Now, when he's under pressure so far this year, Baker Mayfield's passer rating is 97.8, which is very, very strong. That is 3rd best in the NFL. And his completion percentage is 56%, which is 3rd best in the NFL. So he's handling pressure quite well. But when he's kept clean, his numbers are kind of bad. 85.8 passer rating when kept clean. That's 29th out of 32 in the NFL. Most guys are, there's 12 quarterbacks that are above 100 in terms of passer rating. This guy's over here in the mid-80s. 68.7% completion percentage when kept clean, which is also towards the bottom. And so you don't really see many quarterbacks that have favorable metrics when they are pressured compared to when they are kept clean, but that's the world that Baker Mayfield's living in this year. Here's another fascinating Baker Mayfield metric so far. They are running a ton of play action. 29.4% of the time they run play action. That's 4th highest in the NFL in terms of frequency, right? And you know me, I love play action. They're doing it a ton. Baker Mayfield is dead last in the NFL in terms of passer rating with play action at 70.1. And so they're doing it a ton, but it's not been successful. So make it make sense. He's better when he's under pressure compared to when he's kept clean. And they do a ton of play action despite it not being successful. Pretty crazy stuff. Screen percentage is 7.9%. That's 26th in the NFL. Their yards per attempt on screens is 3.2, and that's a very low number. That's worse than the Bills. And I know that everybody complains about the Bills not being able to run screens. Well, the Buccaneers are towards the bottom of the league as well in terms of effectiveness, but obviously only 7.9% of the time. That's 26. So not like they're going out there running a ton of screens. All right, we're going to talk about the rest of this offense. Stick with me. But look, maybe you are wanting to go to the Bills and Bucks on Thursday Night Football, or you want to get to some of these Sabres games. But you got to check out Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, all the music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got a lot of good stuff. They have killer last-minute deals. They have all-in prices. So when you go on the app, the price that you see is the price that you pay. They give you a view from your seat so you can see exactly what it's going to be like when you get into the venue, and they give you a best price guarantee. Gametime, simply put, takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The app is awesome, super easy to navigate. They give you some flash deals when you hop in there, last-minute tickets like I mentioned. And I also love that they send the tickets right to your phone. You don't have to dig through emails. They go right to your phone. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is Dave Canales. Very intriguing young offensive coordinator, 42 years old. He was in Seattle for a long time, from 2010 through 2022, and he coached the wide receivers. He coached quarterbacks, had a couple of years as their passing game coordinator, and there's been a lot of success there, whether it was early stage Russell Wilson. Think about some of the receivers that have come through there, whether it's Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, right? Not necessarily high picks, but guys that have really panned out. He's had a lot of success with what he's touched, including, he gets a lot of credit for Geno Smith and how he played last year in Seattle. And so far, he's doing a pretty good job here with Baker Mayfield based on, the fact that Baker was dangling out there as a free agent, was on 3 different teams really over the last year and a half or so. And he's getting decent production out of him. And so I'm curious about this Dave Canales and, his trajectory as a coach. This is his first season as an NFL offensive coordinator. So far, the Bucs are averaging 17 points per game. That's 26th in the NFL, so not a ton of scoring here. 6.2 yards per pass, that is 14th. 3.1 yards per rush, that is 31st. The Buccaneers have been one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL over the last several seasons, even with Tom Brady there. And that trend is absolutely continuing. They turned it over 9.7% of their drives. That's 21st in the league. Doing a pretty decent job there. Only 6 turnovers committed in 6 games. And they score on 32% of drives, which is 24th. 43% on third down conversion rate. That's pretty solid. That's 10th in the league. Their red zone touchdown percentage is very poor. Only 37.5% of the time they score a touchdown when they get to the red zone, which is 28th in the NFL. Let's talk about this personnel here. Wide receiver, it's about 2 guys. You know them, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Those guys are producing. Mike Evans has been he's been the most consistent wide receiver in the NFL probably over the last, 8 years. I mean, however many consecutive years he's been in the NFL, he's had 1,000 yards every single season. And so he's been a really outstanding player for them, and that's not changing. Big, athletic, catch point receiver. Think about the extremely good version of Gabe Davis, right? Like everything you wish Gabe Davis was is what Mike Evans is, and he's a stud. And Chris Godwin, back healthy, he's producing as well. So their wide receiver core, they've got a couple other guys, but Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are really the catalyst for this entire passing offense. The other guys that are involved, Devin Tompkins, a very small receiver. He's like 5'8", 155 pounds. Super productive player out of Utah State, a second-year player. He's also the return guy, has a ton of speed, 4.3 speed, and so you kind of hold your breath when he gets opportunities. They have another speedster in Trey Palmer out of Nebraska, another 4.3 receiver that has the ability to get loose down the field. So that's the kind of the keys of their wide receiver core. At tight end, it's Cade Otton and then a couple of blocking specialists. Cade Otton's a young tight end that I like a fair amount out of Washington. He's their guy at tight end, their most dynamic player at tight end for sure, and he gets pretty much almost all the run there. At running back, a second-year player, Rashad White, is their feature back out of Arizona State, and then he's backed up by Keyshawn Vaughn, who's been a bust as a third-round pick, and then Sean Tucker out of Syracuse, who has made this team but has not made much of an impact. So when it comes to the running back distribution, 83 carries for Rachaad White, 19 for Keyshawn Vaughn, and 18 for Sean Tucker. And Rachaad White's averaging 3.2 yards per carry. Vaughn's averaging 1.7. Tucker's averaging 1.5. That's their top 3 ball carriers. It's not a lot of production running the football. When it comes to targets, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are their leading target receivers. They've had 47 each. Then it's Cade Otton at 23. Then it's Rachaad White also at 23. 18 for Tompkins, 17 for Palmer. It's a pretty defined pecking order. When they throw the football, it's going to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right? That's their 2 primaries. Then it's Cade Otton and Rachaad White. It's very traditional in terms of these 2 receivers, this tight end, this running back. Those are the guys that get the football, which is different, right? We talked about the Patriots, even the Giants here in recent weeks, where they get a lot of different players involved, and that kind of makes it a little bit challenging. But these guys have a couple of go-to receivers in Godwin and Evans that are very, very strong. In terms of their offensive line, this has been a fascinating situation because going into the season, you kind of looked at this offensive line and you had a ton of question marks, especially after, an all-pro center like Ryan Jensen goes down for the entire season. And you're flipping over Tristan Wirfs from right tackle to left tackle, and you're kind of just filling in the blanks with a lot of youth. And in some ways, it's really worked out. In other ways, it hasn't. This is their offensive line. Left tackle Tristan Wirfs, one of the best offensive linemen in the game. In fact, Von Miller, during his press conference on Tuesday, said that Von Miller was the best left tackle in the game. Now, Trent Williams might have something to say about that, but bottom line, this is an elite left tackle that the Bills are facing in Tristan Wirfs. Now, their left guard has been Matt Filer, who's a veteran, who's bounced around the last couple of years, that could play a lot of different spots. Now, they've used the exact same offensive line for every snap this season. And that might change if Matt Filer can't play. He's injured, might not go. And if he can't go, you'd assume Aaron Stinney will be their left guard, who's a reserve, who's gotten a fair amount of action over the last couple of years as they've had a lot of offensive line injuries. But if Filer can go, he'll be the starter, Stinney if not. Their center is Robert Hainsey, young player that's, again, gotten opportunity more so due to injuries that they've suffered over the last couple of seasons on the interior offensive line. Their right guard is a rookie, Cody Mauch, out of North Dakota State. You probably remember him from the Senior Bowl, the redheaded guy. He's come in and been a day one starter for them. And then another young player at right tackle in Luke Godecki, who had his challenges in year one coming out of Central Michigan, but he was also a guy that, position change at Central Michigan and a position change again in the NFL. He's finding his way. He's having a good season. So their tackles, Wirfs and Godecki, have been really strong. I think where they've been a little bit problematic is in the middle, but the pass blocking overall has been good. The run blocking is not good. So that's kind of the story of this offensive line. So what are my keys for the Bills on defense against this Buccaneers offense? Well, number one is be ready for play action. And we talked about Baker Mayfield not necessarily having a lot of success with play action, but that doesn't mean they're not running it. And I'm sure based on some of the tape that's been out there the last few weeks of the Bills defense and the challenges they've had with play action, I'm sure you're going to get a pretty strong dose of it. And that probably means to me that you don't want Dorian Williams to be an every down player in this game. I'm sure they're going to attack Dorian Williams if he's out there. I'm kind of anticipating Tyrel Dodson to start, to be honest with you. But you got to be ready for play action. There's going to be those play fakes, and you have to be careful to not overcommit to the run against a bad rushing offense, and make sure you get your proper depth and carry the routes that you're supposed to carry and not vacate space that you're responsible for. So defending play action is going to be critical. Number two is, as we discussed, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are their go-tos. Can you make them win another way? Can you force Baker Mayfield to lean on Trey Palmer and Devin Tompkins and Rachaad White and Cade Otton more so than Evans and Godwin, right? That would be one of my priorities if I were Sean McDermott. We know he's successful throwing the ball to Evans and Godwin. Can we give a little attention there and force them to win another way? That would be an emphasis of my game plan. And number three is you got to tackle Baker Mayfield. And I know that might sound crazy, like, Joe, what are you talking about? Tackle Baker Mayfield. Well, we went through it. He's only been sacked 8 times this year. He's only been pressured. He's only been pressured, bottom 10% in terms of where that's been. But this is another remarkable statistic as it relates to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Only 10.7% of the pressure that Baker Mayfield faces turns into sacks. I mean, the way he's moving within the pocket, the way he's holding up against pressure has been really good. And so when you get a chance to tackle this guy, you got to do it, right? Think about it like this, or don't think about it like this. Let me give you some data. Patrick Mahomes is number 1 in the NFL. 7.2% of the pressure he faces turns into sacks. Number 2 is Baker Mayfield at 10.7%. Number 3 is Josh Allen at 10.9%. So at the rate that you're seeing Josh Allen extend plays and avoid sacks, Baker Mayfield's right there. And so this is one of those games where be under control, like win reps, be under control and get this guy down on the ground because that's part of what's contributing to this really good sack rate for the Buccaneers in terms of small amounts of sacks is they're just not getting him down. When you get pressure, you got to get him down and you got to get your hands up, right? He's kind of one of those quarterbacks that's susceptible to batted passes. Get those hands up and don't allow him to sustain plays because the metrics have told us, right? When he holds onto the football, when he's pressured, it's working out for him pretty good. Reverse that course this week. All right, we're going to talk about the Bills' offense against this Bucs defense, which presents some challenges. We're going to dive into all of that here in just a moment. Stick with me. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And folks, it's so easy to create a free job post over at LinkedIn Jobs. And then once you do, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And then simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Folks, you got to check out PrizePicks. I love it. It is the funnest, most exciting, easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. The format is awesome. It's just you against the numbers. It's not you against thousands of other players, including the pros, including the sharks. It's just you against numbers. Here's what you do. You select 2 or more players. You pick more or less on their projected stats, and you place your entry. That's it. Doesn't take long. Picks can be made in under a minute. And then when you win, the withdrawals are super, super quick. I love watching all these sports right now. I love it even more when I have a PrizePicks entry going into the game. It just makes it that much more fun. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use our code LockedOnNFL. That'll get you a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. The defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is a duo, Casey Rogers and Larry Foote. Todd Bowles, the head coach, defensive-minded head coach. A lot of the influence, of course, is what we've seen with Todd Bowles and how he coaches defense. And structurally, this is going to be a defense that is very similar to Jacksonville. And I said that back when the Bills played the Jaguars, that they're going to face this slew of defenses that are all pretty similar. Mike Caldwell comes from this coaching tree, right? He's a Todd Bowles disciple. And so a lot of the stuff that the Bills saw against Jacksonville, they're going to see that again in this game. Let's get into some of the metrics that matter. 17 points per game is what the Bucs are allowing. That is 6th in the NFL. They're allowing 343 yards per game. That is 23rd. 6.3 yards per pass. That's 23rd. 3.8 yards per rush. That is 11th. 21% turnover rate. This is really good. That's #1 in the NFL. They've got 13 takeaways in 6 games. They have three takeaway games and two takeaway games. They just didn't have any against the Lions. So they're taking away the football. Their blitz rate, very high, 39% blitz rate. That is 4th highest in the NFL. And here's the deal here. This is what I told you. you're going to see a lot of defenses that are like the Jaguars. And so the Jaguars were 8th in blitz rate. The Giants were 3rd in blitz rate. The Pats are 2nd in blitz rate. And now you're going up against this team in Tampa Bay that is 4th highest in blitz rate. And those are situations where we've been very disappointed in the Bills' offense. And so here's another similar style defense, blitzing, man coverage. Do they have the answers, right? You're signing yourself up for more of what you struggled against. Can the offense get it right against this defense? We'll find out. They get pressure. Now, they don't get a ton of pressure, so they're blitzing, but not getting a ton of pressure. 18.6% pressure rate, 6.8% sack rate. This is also a very good defense in the red zone. Number 1 in limiting touchdowns in the red zone. So a lot of good here on this defense. That makes them a tough challenge. Let's talk about their personnel. Their edge rushers, first-round pick Joe Tryon Shoyinka. Not sure he's really met the expectations of being a first-round pick. It seems like he's playing better this year, but a toolsy guy that they're relying a lot on. I think their best pass rusher is Shaq Barrett, who's been really solid. He's been outstanding for the last several seasons. I think he's going to be the big threat off the edge. And then a couple of players here, Yaya Diaby, who's a rookie with speed, and then Anthony Nelson, who think of him as a discount AJ Epinesa type player. On the interior, they got this Vita Vea guy who's big, massive, powerful, a combination of size and athleticism that just doesn't make sense. He's huge, and he's a problem. And so that's going to be a huge challenge for the Bills' interior offensive line. And you think about Javon Hargrave, you think about DJ Reader, Dexter Lawrence, Vita Vea. I mean, that's the elite nose tackles in the NFL. And I don't think any of them are as big and can move like Vita Vea. Other interior defensive linemen, Logan Hall will play a lot of the 4-eye, 5-tech type stuff. He's a long arm guy, early pick for them out of Houston, who's been really kind of ordinary to this point. Greg Gaines, another good interior defensive lineman, came over from the Rams. Von Miller obviously speaks very highly of him. They also have their first-round pick back here in Kalijah Kancey. Missed the first few weeks of the season, and he's provided them some good pass rush on the interior. Now, he's very small, like 280 pounds, and does not have any length, and so that's shown up when he's tried to defend the run, but the pass rush has been good for Kalijah Kancey. So you think about where their problems are going to be with their pass rushers. You have some respect for Tryon Shoyinka, of course, Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey. Those are their problem guys, in my opinion, up front. A linebacker, they've got a good one. Lavonte David, one of the best in the league, has been one of the best in the league and still is one of the best in the league. He's going to be a challenge. Now, their other linebacker, Devin White, there's a lot of hype around him and who he is as a player. He's certainly loud. He gets some good sacks, but I think his snap-to-snap consistency is very poor. I think he's a liability in coverage. I think he's a poor tackler. And so there's a name recognition there because he was a high pick and does some splashy things. But I think his bad I think it outweighs his good. And he's been on a record saying he wants $100 million contract and every other thing. But I'm not a huge fan of him. But as a pressure player, that's where he can offer them something. And I'm sure that's what they're going to ask him to do, is to rush and play a lot like the Patriots had their linebackers play over Josh Allen with kind of a spy look and some delayed rushes to kind of force some things. And so I'm sure they can get creative with Devin White and allow him to be impactful in this game. At corner, the outside corners are Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. They're big, long, physical press man corners that have decent ball skills and really good press coverage ability. But where they lack is change of direction, right? So if you can get on these guys and run good routes like a Stefon Diggs, you should be able to create a lot of separation. Where you're going to struggle is getting off the line and, the physicality that they bring at the catch point. But I think you can shake them loose if you can be elusive as a route runner. Their slot player has been a revelation here, a rookie out of Rutgers, Christian Eisen, who's been solid for them, really good tackler and run defender. You can certainly go after him a little bit in coverage, but he's kind of been up to the task this year as one of the good stories in the league in terms of young unexpected rookie contributions. At safety, they got a real good player here in Antoine Winfield. That's Antoine Winfield, as you remember from the Bills. It's his son. He's one of the best young safeties in the NFL. Versatile, can do everything. I'm sure they're going to have him matched up a lot on Dalton Kincaid, and that'll be a tough challenge. Their other safety is Ryan Neal, who came over after a strong season with Seattle to start alongside Winfield, and he's a solid player. So pretty strong personnel here on the defensive side of the football for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are my keys for the Bills offense against this defense? Number one is execute. Make the plays that are there to be made. That's my biggest gripe with this Bills offense right now, is they don't make plays that are there to be made. And so do it. Change that. When you have a chance to make a play, make a play. Number two is be ready for pressure looks. They're going to blitz. They're going to send guys, and that was a real challenge. That was a real challenge against the Patriots, right? I think the Bills were tricked repeatedly with not knowing where the rushers were coming and not responding, and Josh Allen working away from pressure, and just a lot of mistakes. And so you're going to have a lot of similar challenges this week, and you got to be a whole lot better. And then lastly, I think you kind of want to lean into some play action game in this football game where, I think you can kind of lure some guys in and get over top of them, right? I think where you can have some advantages on some over routes and have some good man beaters mixed into your man beaters. Are going to play man coverage. So man beating routes is what I mean by that. I know that could be a weird phrasing, so I wanted to correct myself there or clarify. You want to use that type of stuff to unlock, right? A lot of horizontal routes running away from coverage. So play action over routes. That's what I think you need to have a huge emphasis in for this game plan. And of course, your protection needs to hold up against these pressure looks. Real quick on special teams, our kicker is Jase Medical. He's been on 8 teams since 2019. Started actually with the Bills as a UDFA, and he's bounced around a ton. Like I said, 8 teams since 2019, getting a chance to be the Bucks kicker. He's off to a good start. He's 11 of 12 on field goals, 8 of 8 on extra points. He's an 80.4% kicker for his career, but like I mentioned, he's off to a great start. And kickers don't miss against the Bills. They haven't missed a single time yet this year. They're 100%. So could it change this week? Could somebody finally miss a field goal? It'd be nice. Jake Camargo is their punter, one of the best young punters in the game. I will say this, they have struggled to cover punts. They've conceded a pretty high average punt return against them. I think it's bottom 5 in the NFL, but it's Jake Camargo is an excellent young punter. And then the returner, I mentioned him, Devin Tompkins, second-year player, 5'8", 155 pounds. He's small, can fit him in your pocket, but he has 4.35 speed. Now, he hasn't broken one yet, but he is explosive. And so you feel like it's only a matter of time there, and I really wouldn't mess with him. I wouldn't want that speed unleashed against my coverage units. So good directional punting. Hopefully you don't have to punt, but also touchbacks, right? Kick it into the end zone, let them start from the 25. I would not mess around with that type of speed. So you have it. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the challenges they present, and what the Bills need to do to deal with them. We're going to have 2 podcasts for you tomorrow. We're going to have our crossover discussion with Locked On Bucks, and of course, my final thoughts, my predictions, our injury report with banged up Bills. So those will drop at various times tomorrow. So keep your head on the swivel. 2 podcasts coming your way to give you as much time to consume them ahead of Thursday Night Football. And then, as I've discussed, we're staying up late. We get you Thursday night post game right away on Bleacher Report. And then, of course, my instant reaction podcast, and then our all 22 review on Friday from Bills and Bucks. All right, folks, that's it for today. Looking forward to the double dip tomorrow. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.